Coworker plays dumb and benefits, backfires the next day. I'm currently a pizza delivery driver at a physical store, not for apps. We have a pretty basic dispatch system. Half of the touch screen is upcoming delivery orders. The other half is a list of drivers sorted by who's been checked in, not clocked in. The longest. It basically ensures deliveries are assigned fairly, so drivers cannot pick and choose the good orders whenever they please. An NBSP. Just yesterday we had an issue that resulted in a rule change. What happened was, driver Andy was next in line to deliver. Andy delivered the order, but forgot to check out said order through the dispatch system. As a result, Andy's name was number 1 in driver order while the delivery order was also unassigned and still in the store. This is pretty common and there's no real penalty or punishment if you forget. Just a silly mistake. When Andy returned, he checked out the delivery he just delivered and immediately checked in. This put his name at number 3 in driver order. This bumped up the number 2 driver, Brian, to the number 1 spot, making the driver order Brian, number 1, myself, number 2, and Andy, number 3. This is correct and how the ordering system would still be if Andy didn't forget to check out his delivery when he was supposed to. Again, normally this is inconsequential, but Brian realized he could try to screw things up in his favor. The orders up for delivery were unknown customer, known customer who tips very well. So when time came for unknown customer to get delivered to Brian, who is number 1 in order and is supposed to be there, refused to deliver it, saying, "I'm not next on the order." Andy was number 1 for 20 minutes. I don't know how he's number 3 now, but I'm not delivering next, it's Andy's turn. Cue a huge waste of time of looking at camera footage and the boss not understanding anything. I would elaborate, but it's such a consulted series of events that frustrates me just thinking about it again. It basically boils down to the boss apparently not having object permanence. The boss ultimately decides, "Andy, you are next. Take the order." This completely screws me over as I am now no longer lined up to take the big tipper delivery and Brian is instead. The exact result Brian was hoping for by playing dumb about the dispatch system. An NBSP. Later that Friday the boss would tell me, "From now on we are going by what the dispatch system says. This will punish the driver that made the mistake, like Andy, instead of others." Which is completely false. The only person who got punished by Andy's mistake was me. Andy got to deliver 2 orders back to back, which the dispatch system is supposed to prevent. And Brian benefited from the driver order by getting assigned the big tipper I was supposed to go to. I explained this to my boss as well as how ripe for abuse this new rule is. His only response was, "Andy's mistake may have negatively affected you today, but next time it probably won't." This is the only way to solve this type of thing. Again, completely false. We have a history log of what driver took what orders, which I pulled up to show that the boss's decision made Andy take 2 deliveries in a row, which also proved Brian was next in line and not Andy. But the boss just shrugged and said the new rule is new rule. Final say. An NBSP. Next day, Saturday, I clock into my shift and notice that the dispatch system says that Brian is currently checked out on a delivery, but I see his car parked. So clearly he's already back and forgotten to check in. I assume he's either in the bathroom or around the building smoking like usual, ignoring the other duties we have until a delivery is ready. So the driver order is currently number 1 Brian, but he's out, and number 2 me. Then a delivery order comes in. A big one for 8 large pizzas. Big orders usually come with a big tip, but it's not a guarantee. I walk over to the boss and say, "Just making sure. From now on we go by dispatch order regardless of what anyone says. Yes? And he confirms. Yes, stick to the dispatch order. Perfect. Brian comes out of the bathroom a few minutes later, walks over to the dispatch system and realizes he forgot to check in. So he check in. As a result, his name moves down below mine in the dispatch system as it thinks he just got back. Normally, as many drivers make this mistake, this wouldn't really affect anything. Brian tells me, "Oh hey, I was here before you, I just forgot to check in." I say, "Oh, well boss says we're going by dispatch order and it says I'm next so." Brian walks over to the boss and starts explaining the situation. Meanwhile, the big order is slowly coming out of the oven and getting prepped for delivery. Another driver, Ivan, friends with Brian, comes back from his lunch break and clocks back in. Brian calls him over, since before Ivan left the building he witnessed Brian come back from a delivery and go straight to the bathroom before I ever clocked in for my shift. The boss is annoyed, simply reiterating, "We're going by the dispatch order. Night Fev 3R is next." Brian continues to argue while Ivan comes over to me and says, "Hey man, you know Brian just forgot to check in and he's actually next. Right? You're going to let him take this next delivery. The dispatch order doesn't matter." I tell him, "Sorry. Boss said to go by the dispatch order." The big order finishes getting prepped and I check out the delivery under my name and take it to my car. To my surprise, no one ran out to stop me. I didn't think I'd get away with it. This isn't the first time Brian caused a rule change. Normally when it comes back to bite him in the ass, it's been long enough that the boss forgets and reverts the rule, causing Brian to always get his way. But I guess since it literally happened yesterday, this time it was clearly fresh on the boss's mind. Plus I clarified right before this happened. As I'm leaving, Andy drives up to start his shift and I tell him, "I got his ass. I stole his order. Tell you about it later." The big order did indeed have a big tip. $20. The amount Brian caused me to lose yesterday. An NBSP. While I was out, Andy told me that a known non-tipper delivery came in. Under normal circumstances I would have been assigned this order. But Brian's rule change caused him to be assigned this delivery instead. He threw a temper tantrum, refusing to deliver it until the boss forced him to. When Brian returned, he decided to clock out for the day, working less than an hour. Having one less driver on a busy day is bad. It puts us behind on delivery times and causes a ripple effect that makes every order during peak time to become late and cold. This negatively affects everyone. Drivers get stuck delivering already late orders, which means less or no tips. The store gets low review scores for late delivery times and complaining from customers. #aftermath. For some reason Saturdays have been relatively slow. So Brian's tantrum didn't affect us. It was actually good, as one less driver meant I got more deliveries. The rule is still in place. Unfortunately, it's ripe for abuse and I'll probably get screwed over by it sooner or later. For example, imagine the 2 Saturday orders were reversed. Brian comes out of the bathroom, checks in and is placed second. This makes me first in line for the no tip. Mini updates. 1. Rule may potentially get reversed. With the help of an old coworker who shows up to hang out, I was able to show the boss a dispatch system glitch. When 2 drivers check in with the system in a relatively short time to each other, the system will reverse their order. For example, Brian checks in and a minute later Ivan checks in. The system will glitch and make Ivan number 1 and Brian number 2. This ex-coworker demonstrated the glitch, telling the boss, "Yeah, this has been a thing for years. It was still a thing when I used to work here." Boss was surprised, asking why he never heard of it. Well, because this was literally never an issue. When it happened, drivers would just tell each other, "Oh hey, it did the thing. You're actually ahead of me in the order." I also gave him examples of how bad faith drivers can abuse his rule. Like the one I mentioned above. The boss acknowledged this isn't good for his new rule, especially learning how common it is, but didn't confirm he's reversing the rule. 2. Brian will be fired. Again. Allegedly. Brian got fired 2 weeks ago for getting into a screaming match with a manager over not wanting to deliver an order he was supposed to. Deja vu. The screaming match scared our newest phone girl into quitting. Brian also stormed off that day making orders late, so boss said he was fired. But the boss is short-staffed and Brian was back to working a week later. After today and telling the boss he can't keep storming off. It ruins the delivery times. The boss agreed and said he didn't plan to keep Brian around, and once he finds a replacement, Brian will be fired again. We'll see about that though. I have my doubts. Good that you made things right for yourself. But having a boss that incompetent is surely gonna cause more issues in the future. Is there any way to go over his head and explain what's happening to anybody higher up? The solution to this problem is to not show any order details in advance. That way there is no ground to want to skip an order. It would make the delivery system more simple. In fact, I love ordering pizza from the small, still delivers their own pizza places. We tip about 25%, more than at a restaurant because of gas, insurance, and upkeep of the vehicle. And because we often, really we are, order on a night with terrible storms and we've lost power and can't cook. So I'm glad this still being done. But warn me if I'm getting Brian. The other guy always gets the pizza to the house when it's still hot. I don't think Brian would care. Thank you for not making this a wall of text. How do you deliver drivers keep track of who tips well versus those who don't? Reading this halfway, I was expecting you to somehow abuse this. Like going on consecutive orders and not checking in so you are always number one or something, haha. In the long run, going by the dispatch system will be the most fair. From a purely statistical standpoint, all deliveries take a certain average time and earn the same, on average, tip. But with 3 drivers, the odds of there being a number of deliveries evenly divisible by 3 is, well, 1 in 3. That means 2 out of 3 times someone is getting an extra delivery versus someone else. So, with his rule adhered to, people forgetting to sign back in or losing out, ever so slightly. It seems like the fundamental issue here is employees are competing against each other for tips. Where I live there is no tipping, so there's no incentive for drivers to favor one order over another. That results in a more harmonious workplace. Why doesn't the boss just pay enough and tell customers that tipping isn't required? In an alternative universe, read Australia. Workers are paid fair wages and everyone gets paid the same hourly rate. Avoiding issues and infighting like this, tipping is not an expected part of life, so there's no burden for customers and no hidden costs. A story in the making. Nice change for once. Hey op, you gotta commission internet historian to make a video about this and use this post as the script. I can see this becoming an internet historian video easy.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.